Hello and welcome to Read and Learn English. Today is a very special day. It is the birthday of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, one of the most well-known and respected women in the world. She is a symbol of peace, courage, and the long fight for democracy in Myanmar. Her story is full of strength, sacrifice, and hope. On this important day, we want to share her life story with you in simple English, so you can both learn English and learn about a woman who changed history. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi was born on June 19th, and her life has inspired millions of people around the world. She is known as the Lady in Myanmar. She spent many years under house arrest because she wanted to bring freedom and democracy to her country. Even when she was not free, her spirit stayed strong. She chose peace over violence and hope over fear. In this story, you will read about her childhood, her time studying abroad, her return to Myanmar, and her leadership in difficult times. You will learn new words, new grammar, and most importantly, you will learn about a true hero. This is not just a lesson in English. It is a lesson in courage, patience, and belief in doing what is right. So join us today as we begin this special journey through the life of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Happy birthday to the lady, and thank you for showing the world the power of peaceful resistance. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Daughter of a Hero. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi was born on June 19, 1945 in Rangoon, the capital city of Burma, now called Yangon, Myanmar. She was born during a very important time in her country's history. The world was at the end of World War II, and many countries were fighting for freedom and independence. Her father, General Aung San, was a national hero. He was the man who helped Burma begin its journey to freedom from British rule. General Aung San was a strong and brave leader. He believed that the people of Burma should decide their own future. He worked hard to unite the country and bring different groups together. He was young, intelligent, and full of passion. People respected him because he wanted peace, justice, and equality for all. When Suu Kyi was just 2 years old, something very sad happened. Her father, General Aung San, was assassinated. He was killed by political rivals on July 19, 1947, just a few months before Burma became independent. The country mourned his death. He became a symbol of freedom and sacrifice. Even though Suu Kyi was too young to remember him well, his spirit and ideas stayed with her for the rest of her life. Suu Kyi grew up in a house filled with memories of her father. Her mother, Kin Kyi, was also a strong and intelligent woman. After her husband's death, she raised Suu Kyi and her 2 brothers alone. Kin Kyi later became a famous diplomat. She was one of the first women in Burma to work in a high government position. She also served as the ambassador to India. Suu Kyi learned many things by watching her mother work with strength and grace. As a young girl, Suu Kyi loved to read and learn. She was curious and thoughtful. She asked many questions and paid attention to the world around her. People who knew her said she was calm, polite, and serious, but inside, she had a strong heart and a clear mind. When she was a teenager, Suu Kyi moved with her mother to India, where her mother worked as ambassador. Living in India gave Suu Kyi the chance to learn about different cultures and ideas. She studied at a famous school in New Delhi and met many important people. She saw how leaders could make good or bad choices. These experiences helped shape her ideas about democracy, freedom, and human rights. Suu Kyi was proud to be the daughter of General Aung San. People in Burma also looked at her with respect because of her father's name. But Suu Kyi did not want to live only in his shadow. She wanted to understand his dream and carry it forward in her own way. Later, she would say, "My father died for his country. I want to live for it." These words show her deep love for Burma and her strong desire to help its people. Even though she spent many years abroad, her heart always belonged to her homeland. The early years of Suu Kyi's life were shaped by two powerful forces: the heroic memory of her father and the quiet strength of her mother. These two people gave her the foundation she needed to become a leader one day. From a young age, she learned the meaning of sacrifice, duty, and service. She also learned that being a leader is not about power or fame. It is about helping others and standing up for what is right, even when it is hard. Her father had died for his beliefs. Her mother had lived with dignity and courage, and Suu Kyi would one day follow both their paths. As she grew older, Suu Kyi continued to study and grow. She would later travel to the United Kingdom, study at Oxford University, and live a quiet life abroad. But the story of her father never left her heart. It was always with her, like a quiet voice calling her home. The daughter of a hero was slowly becoming a woman of destiny. Chapter 2. A Life Between Worlds. After her father's death, Aung San Suu Kyi's life began to change in many ways. Her mother, Daw Hin Kyi, became more involved in public service. In the late 1950s, she was chosen to serve as Burma's ambassador to India and Nepal. This was a big honor, and it also meant the family had to move to New Delhi, the capital of India. Suu Kyi was still a teenager when she moved to India. At first, it was not easy. India was different from Burma. The language, culture, food, and people were all new to her. But Suu Kyi was smart and open-minded. She adapted quickly. She studied at Lady Shri Ram College, one of the best schools in India. There she learned to speak English fluently and became interested in world politics and philosophy. During her time in India, Suu Kyi saw poverty, injustice, and inequality. But she also saw strong leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, who believed in democracy and peace. These experiences had a deep effect on her. She began to think more seriously about freedom, justice, and the role of government. Even as she lived in India, Suu Kyi never forgot her roots. She often read books about her father and Burma's history. She kept her Burmese identity close to her heart. She lived in one world, but always carried another inside her. This is why her life would always be a life between worlds, between East and West, between family and duty, between silence and action. In the 1960s, after finishing school in India, Suu Kyi moved again, this time to England. She was accepted to study at Oxford University, one of the most famous universities in the world. She studied philosophy, politics, and economics, PPE, at St. Hugh's College. At Oxford, she met students from many different countries. She made friends, attended lectures, and enjoyed quiet walks through the beautiful campus. Life in Oxford was peaceful. It was a place where she could think deeply and grow as a person. She read books by famous thinkers like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., who believed in non-violent resistance. Their ideas would later become important in her own fight for democracy. Suu Kyi was not just a student. She also worked part-time to support herself. She learned to cook, clean, and take care of her own needs. She was independent, disciplined, and humble. Many people at Oxford remember her as quiet but strong, gentle but clear in her thinking. After finishing her degree, Suu Kyi worked in different places. She worked at the United Nations in New York, where she helped with questions about budget and public service. She also did more studies in Japan and Bhutan. During these years, she learned about many cultures and political systems. She began to see the world more clearly and to see her own country with new eyes. In 1972, Suu Kyi married Dr. Michael Aris, a British scholar who studied Asian history. They had 2 sons, Alexander and Kim, and lived a quiet family life in the United Kingdom. For many years, Suu Kyi focused on being a good mother and wife, but even then her heart stayed connected to Burma. She taught her children about their Burmese heritage. She cooked Burmese food at home and spoke the language with them. She also continued to follow news from Burma and worried about the military rule and lack of freedom in her homeland. Even though she was far away, the voice of her father seemed to whisper to her through the years. He had once said that the people of Burma deserved a life of dignity and choice. That dream was still not true. The country had been under military control since 1962. People were afraid to speak. There was no free press. Many students and activists had been arrested. Suu Kyi was living in a free country, but her own people were not. This thought stayed in her mind like a quiet storm. In 1988, her mother, Daw Khin Kyi, became seriously ill. Suu Kyi returned to Burma to take care of her. It had been many years since she had walked the streets of Rangoon. She found a country that was hurting and broken. People were poor, tired, and afraid. But there was also something else. A desire for change. Suu Kyi had returned home as a daughter, but soon she would be called to serve as something more. She had lived between 2 worlds for many years. Now those 2 worlds would meet. Her education, her experiences, her quiet strength, and her deep love for her country, all of it had prepared her for what would come next. She was no longer just the daughter of a hero. She was about to become a leader in her own right. Chapter 3. The Call of Home. In 1988, Aung San Suu Kyi returned to Burma for a personal reason. Her mother, Daw Khin Kyi, was very sick. Suu Kyi came back to take care of her. At first, she planned to stay only for a short time. Her husband and children were still in England, and she expected to return to her quiet family life. But life had other plans. When Suu Kyi arrived in Rangoon, she found a country full of pain. The people were poor. The economy was broken. The streets were quiet. But fear was everywhere. Burma had been ruled by a military government since 1962. The people had no freedom of speech, no free elections, and no human rights. Many young people, especially students, were angry and wanted change. In March 1988, student protests began in Rangoon. They were angry about police violence, high prices, and a lack of jobs. At first, the protests were small, but they grew bigger and stronger each day. People from all walks of life, teachers, monks, workers, and even some soldiers, joined the protests. They were asking for democracy and a better future. The military responded with violence. Soldiers shot at protesters. Many people were killed or arrested. The The streets of Rangoon were filled with fear and blood. The whole country was in crisis. Suu Kyi saw all of this. She had come home to care for her mother, but she could not stay silent. She had studied democracy. She had read about nonviolence. And she was the daughter of General Aung San, the man who gave his life for the country's freedom. Now, she felt a deep responsibility. The people needed a voice. She decided to speak. On August 26, 1988, Suu Kyi gave her first public speech at the Shwedagon Pagoda in Rangoon. Over 500,000 people came to hear her. She stood on a small stage, wearing a simple outfit, and spoke with calm but powerful words. She told the crowd that the people of Burma had the right to live in peace, to speak freely, and to choose their leaders. She called for non-violence, unity, and democracy. It was a historic moment. For the first time in many years, people had hope. They saw not just the daughter of a hero, but a new leader. A leader with intelligence, courage, and a strong heart. After the speech, Suu Kyi became the face of the democracy movement. Along with other activists, she helped form the National League for Democracy, NLD, a new political party. The NLD promised to fight for free elections, human rights, and justice. Suu Kyi became the general secretary of the party. Her calm voice and clear ideas gave people strength. But the military government saw her as a threat. They did not want to lose power. In July 1989, they put Suu Kyi under house arrest. She was not allowed to leave her home. She could not meet with her supporters. Soldiers watched her day and night, but even from inside her house, she remained strong. She refused to leave Burma, even when her husband and children were far away. The government told her that if she left, she could go free, but she would not be allowed to return. Suu Kyi chose to stay. She said, "I cannot leave my people. They are not free, so I will not be free." During her house arrest, people continued to support her. They wrote letters, shared her words, and spread her message of peace and democracy. Around the world, people began to notice her. She was compared to leaders like Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi. In 1990, the military allowed a national election. The NLD won more than 80% of the seats. It was a clear message. The people wanted change, but the military refused to give up power. They ignored the results and kept Suu Kyi under arrest. The dream of democracy was delayed once again. Still, Suu Kyi did not give up. She spent many years alone, cut off from her family and friends. But her spirit remained strong. She read books, listened to the radio, and wrote speeches. Her simple home became a symbol of peaceful resistance. Her return to Burma in 1988 was not just a visit. It was a turning point in her life. She had answered the call of home, and that call changed everything. Aung San Suu Kyi had stepped into history. She had become more than a daughter, more than a mother, more than a wife. She had become the voice of a nation. Chapter 4. Voices of Freedom. The year 1988 was one of the most important years in modern Burmese history. It was a year full of pain, courage, and hope. The people of Burma, after years of living under military rule, stood up to demand freedom. Their voices were strong and clear. They wanted a new life, a life of democracy. And among those voices, one voice rose above the rest, the voice of Aung San Suu Kyi. After returning to Burma to care for her sick mother, Suu Kyi watched the country fall into deep unrest. Prices of basic goods had gone up. Schools and hospitals were not working well. The economy had collapsed, and the people were struggling to survive. The government, led by General Ne Win, ruled with fear. People were arrested without reason. Speaking against the military was dangerous, but the people had had enough. In March 1988, students in Rangoon began protesting. They demanded justice after a fellow student was beaten to death by the police. Their voices sparked a flame that soon spread across the whole country. Thousands of people, young and old, rich and poor, joined the movement. They were tired of being afraid. They wanted to be heard. These peaceful protests became known as the 1988 Uprising or 8888 Uprising because one of the largest marches happened on August 8th, 1988, 8888. On that day, millions of people across Burma marched together. They carried signs, sang songs, and held each other's hands. For the first time in years, the streets were full of hope. But the military answered the protests with guns. Soldiers opened fire on crowds. Thousands of people were killed. Blood ran in the streets, but the spirit of the people did not die. At this turning point, Suu Kyi made a decision that would change her life forever. She could no longer remain quiet. On August 26, 1988, she gave a powerful speech at the Shwedagon Pagoda, the heart of Buddhist life in Burma. Standing in front of 500,000 people, Suu Kyi spoke clearly and calmly. She asked for peaceful change, freedom of speech, and respect for human rights. She said, "The revolution is not about power. It is about truth, justice, and the will of the people." That day, the people saw her not just as the daughter of General Aung San, but as their own leader. She became the symbol of hope. Just weeks later, along with other activists and thinkers, Suu Kyi helped form a political party called the National League for Democracy, NLD. The NLD stood for Nonviolence, Truth, and Freedom. Its goal was to bring democracy to Burma through peaceful and legal means. Suu Kyi became the general secretary of the party. She traveled across the country, visiting villages, towns, and cities. She met with farmers, monks, students, and factory workers. She listened to their stories and shared her vision. People called her Daw Suu with love and respect. She never used bodyguards or fancy cars. She walked among the people, often in simple clothes and with flowers in her hair. Her speeches were full of kindness and courage. She always told the people to stay peaceful, even when the government was cruel. She reminded them that change would come, but only if they stayed united and strong. The military watched her closely. They were afraid of her popularity. On July 20th, 1989, they put her under house arrest. They said she was a danger to the country. But the people knew the truth. Suu Kyi was a danger only to those who ruled with fear and lies. Even under arrest, Suu Kyi's voice did not fade. The NLD continued its work. The party members faced threats, prison, and torture, but they did not give up. They believed in the dream of democracy that Suu Kyi had given them. In 1990, the military surprisingly allowed a general election. The people were excited. They came out in large numbers to vote. The result was clear. The NLD won more than 80% of the seats. It was a huge victory. But instead of respecting the vote, the military rejected the results. They refused to give up power and kept Suu Kyi under arrest. The world watched in shock. Many countries called for her release. She became a symbol of peaceful resistance, like Nelson Mandela in South Africa or Gandhi in India. In 1991, while still under house arrest, Suu Kyi was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize money was used to help the Burmese people. She did not accept the award in person, but the world heard her message loud and clear. The 1988 uprising and the founding of the NLD marked the birth of a new Burma. It was not yet free, but it had found its voice. And that voice, soft yet strong, belonged to Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Chapter 5. The Iron Gate Closes. The year was 1989, and Burma was full of tension. After the powerful speech at Shwedagon Pagoda and the founding of the National League for Democracy, NLD, Aung San Suu Kyi had become the most important voice for change in the country. The people loved her. They believed in her dream of democracy. But the military leaders were afraid. They saw Suu Kyi as a threat to their power. Her growing popularity made them nervous. On July 20th, 1989, the military made a decision. They would silence her. Soldiers arrived at her house on University Avenue in Rangoon. They closed the gates and placed guards outside. Suu Kyi was now under house arrest. There were no trials, no charges. She was simply locked inside her home. From that day, she could no longer meet with her party members, speak to the public, or travel outside. Her life of movement and action had suddenly become quiet and lonely. Suu Kyi's house was large but simple. It was near the peaceful waters of Inya Lake, surrounded by trees and flowers. But now it felt like a prison. The iron gate at the front was always locked. Soldiers watched her day and night. They controlled who could come and go. Even letters and phone calls were blocked. Her husband, Michael Aries, and her 2 sons were still in England. The military told her she could leave Burma at any time, but if she left, she would never be allowed to return. It was a difficult choice. She missed her family deeply. Her children were growing up without her. But she stayed. She said, "I must stay with my people. I cannot leave them in their time of need." At first, Suu Kyi was completely alone. No visits, no messages, no news from the outside world. For someone who had lived such an active life, the silence was painful. But she refused to let it break her spirit. She turned her prison into a place of peace and strength. Every day, Suu Kyi followed a simple routine. She read books, listened to the radio, and meditated. She kept her mind clear and focused. She studied the lives of great leaders like Gandhi and Mandela, and their words gave her hope. She knew she was not alone in her struggle. Sometimes she played the piano. The soft music echoed through the house and reminded her of beauty and grace. She also kept a journal, writing down her thoughts, her dreams, and her ideas for a better Burma. Even in silence, her voice stayed alive. Outside the gates, the world did not forget her. The NLD continued to work, though many members were arrested or watched closely. The people of Burma still believed in her. They whispered her name with respect. Her photo was kept in hidden places, and her speeches were shared in secret. In 1990, the military allowed an election, thinking they could control the result. But to their surprise, the NLD won more than 80% of the seats. It was a clear sign. The people wanted change. They had voted for freedom, for justice, and for Suu Kyi. But the military refused to accept the result. They ignored the voice of the people and held on to power. Suu Kyi remained under house arrest. The military hoped time would make people forget her. But the opposite happened. Her silence made her stronger in the eyes of the world. In 1991, Aung San Suu Kyi was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her peaceful struggle for democracy. She could not attend the ceremony, but her son, Alexander, accepted the prize on her behalf in Norway. In his speech, he said, "She would not accept a life of comfort while her people are not free." The prize money was used to set up a health and education program for the people of Burma. International leaders, writers, and human rights groups praised Suu Kyi. She became a global symbol of courage and nonviolence. People called her the Lady of Burma. Her name was spoken in the same breath as Gandhi, Mandela, and Martin Luther King Jr. But still, the Iron Gate remained closed. Over the years, Suu Kyi faced many health problems. She was sometimes allowed visits from her doctor, but even that was limited. Letters from her husband were often blocked. And in 1999, while still under house arrest, she received heartbreaking news. Her husband Michael had died of cancer in England. The government had refused his final request to see her one last time. Despite the pain, Suu Kyi remained calm. Her sadness was deep, but her love for Burma was even deeper. She believed that real freedom came from within. Even though she was not free on the outside, her spirit was never imprisoned. The Iron Gate stayed closed for 6 long years, until 1995, when she was finally released. But her journey was far from over. Freedom in Burma had not yet arrived. Still, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi had shown the world something powerful, that even in silence, even in isolation, a voice of truth and peace can still be heard. Chapter 6. Silent Strength. After 6 long years of house arrest, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi was finally released in 1995. The Iron Gate on University Avenue opened, and the people cheered. But even though she was free to walk outside her home, the country was still under military rule. The generals still held power, and Burma was far from free. Suu Kyi knew that the real fight for democracy had only just begun. She walked out of her house quietly, without anger or revenge. She smiled and waved to the people, her heart full of peace and hope. She did not call for violence. Instead, she called for patience, kindness, and strong hearts. Her weapon was not a gun, it was truth, and her way was non-violence. The military leaders hoped that 6 years in isolation would weaken her spirit, but it did the opposite. Suu Kyi had become even stronger. Her words were calm, but powerful. She continued to speak about freedom, justice, and human rights. She believed that the power of love and truth was greater than fear. She began meeting with other members of the National League for Democracy, NLD. Together, they made plans for the future. They talked about how to bring democracy to Burma through peaceful means. They knew it would be difficult, but Suu Kyi reminded them that real change takes time. The government continued to block her. They refused to let her travel freely. They watched her every move. Soldiers followed her wherever she went. But still, she continued her peaceful resistance. She held small gatherings in her yard. She gave speeches from behind the gates of her home. People came quietly, listening from the street or from nearby houses. Her voice gave them courage. Sometimes, Suu Kyi tried to visit people in other towns. But the government would stop her car. Soldiers would block the road. They would try to force her to turn back. In one famous moment, Suu Kyi was on her way to meet NLD supporters when her car was stopped by armed soldiers. A soldier pointed a gun at her, but she did not turn around. She told the driver to keep going. She was ready to die if needed. That moment showed the world her bravery. Her nonviolent resistance was inspired by leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Like them, Suu Kyi believed that peace is more powerful than hate. She once said, "If you want to bring change, you must be prepared to suffer for it, peacefully." The military tried to silence her again. In 2000, she was placed under house arrest for a second time. Once again, she lived behind the Iron Gate. But this time, the people were watching more closely. The world had not forgotten her. Her time under house arrest was hard, but she stayed strong. She read books, meditated, and kept her mind sharp. She stayed connected with the NLD as much as she could. She was often cut off from the world, but her heart stayed connected to her people. In 2002, she was released once again. The streets filled with smiling faces. People cheered, waved flowers, and cried tears of joy. Daw Suu gave speeches of peace and unity. She told her supporters to stay calm, to believe in justice, and to never give up. But the military was not ready to let go of power. In 2003, after one of her trips to the countryside, her convoy was attacked in a place called Depayan. It was a planned attack by people connected to the government. Many NLD members were hurt, and some were killed. Suu Kyi survived, but it was a dark moment. After the attack, the government placed her under house arrest once again. This time, she would stay there for many more years. The Iron Gate closed once more, but her silent strength never faded. While she was locked away, the people continued to support her. They held quiet ceremonies, released balloons with her picture, and whispered her name with love. Even though she was not on the streets, her spirit was everywhere. Outside of Burma, people around the world kept speaking her name. She was given awards and honors. Writers, musicians, teachers, and leaders spoke about her courage. She became a symbol of peaceful resistance. In 2007, monks across Burma led protests against the military government. These protests became known as the Saffron Revolution because of the color of the monks' robes. Once again, the people were rising up peacefully, and once again, the government answered with violence. But the movement reminded the world that the fight for freedom in Burma was still alive. Throughout all these years, Suu Kyi never called for hate. She never asked for violence. She stayed true to her belief that real change must come through peace. Her silent strength became her greatest power. Even when she could not speak, her message was clear. Even when she could not move, her spirit reached far. She taught the world that courage is not about shouting the loudest or fighting with fists. Courage is staying calm in the face of fear. Courage is holding on to your truth, even when you are alone. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's silent strength lit a candle of hope in the dark, and that candle, even in the storm, never went out. Chapter 8. Letters, Songs, and Hope. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi spent many years under house arrest. During this time, she was separated from her family, friends, and the people she loved. The iron gates closed around her like a heavy wall. But even in this loneliness, she found ways to stay connected, with hope, with music, and with the outside world. Though the military government tried to isolate her, they could not stop her spirit from reaching out. One of the strongest ways she stayed connected was through letters. Suu Kyi loved to write. Letters were her voice when she could not speak freely. She wrote to her sons, to friends, and to supporters. Her letters showed her feelings, her love, her sadness, and her hope for a better future. Her sons, Alexander and Kim, wrote back too. They told her about their lives in England, about school and friends, and about how proud they were of her. These letters gave Suu Kyi strength. Even though she was far from them, their words brought comfort. The letters were like small windows to the world outside the Iron Gate. Not all letters were allowed through. The government censored many messages, trying to keep her silent. But Suu Kyi's friends helped by sharing her letters with the world. They translated them and published them so people everywhere could read her thoughts. Her words touched millions and inspired people to keep fighting for freedom in Burma. Besides letters, music was another way Suu Kyi kept hope alive. She loved to sing and play the piano. Music helped her relax and remember happier times. She often sang traditional Burmese songs, songs about peace and love. Music was a language that crossed walls and borders. Even in silence, music spoke loud and clear. Her favorite songs told stories of courage and patience. Sometimes her visitors heard her humming softly. Her voice was quiet, but full of feeling. These songs became symbols of her quiet strength and her belief in peace. Outside Burma, many musicians and artists learned about Suu Kyi's story. They wrote songs, poems, and paintings to honor her. People held concerts and events in her name. Music became a way for people around the world to show their support and share her message. Hope was the most important thing that kept Suu Kyi going. Even when the military tried to break her spirit, she believed in a better future. She dreamed of a free Burma where people could speak, vote, and live with dignity. Her hope was not just for herself, but for all the people who suffered under the military government. She said many times, "We must never lose hope. Change will come. It is slow, but it will come." This message gave courage to millions who faced fear every day. Suu Kyi also found hope in the actions of ordinary people. Many Burmese continued to support her quietly. They held small meetings, shared her speeches, and helped each other stay strong. Even though many lived in fear, they believed her message of peace. International friends and organizations helped too. Human rights groups worked hard to keep attention on Burma. They spoke about Suu Kyi in the United Nations and other world meetings. Their support helped remind the military rulers that the world was watching. During her detention, Suu Kyi was also given several international awards. These honors were a sign that her peaceful fight was respected everywhere. Each award sent a message. The world believed in justice and human rights, and they believed in her. One of the most important awards was the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought given by the European Parliament. This prize recognized Suu Kyi's courage and her peaceful struggle for democracy. Even though she could not travel to receive it, the honor was a powerful symbol. The years of detention were difficult and painful, but Suu Kyi's connection through letters, songs, and hope helped her survive. Her story reached people around the world, and she became a symbol of peaceful resistance everywhere. Her life showed that even when you are locked away, your voice can still be heard. Even when you face great challenges, hope can keep you strong. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi taught the world that courage is not always loud. It can be quiet, steady, and full of love. Her letters, her songs, and her hope were like light shining through the darkest times. They remind us all that peace and freedom are worth waiting for and worth fighting for, without hate or violence. Chapter 9. A Flicker of Change. For many years, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi lived under house arrest. The military government ruled Burma with strict control, but in the early 2010s, small changes began to happen. These changes gave hope to the people. They showed that freedom might come one day. The world watched closely as Burma started to open a little. The military government knew it could no longer keep the country closed forever. Economic problems and international pressure made the generals think differently. They wanted to improve relations with other countries. They wanted to attract money and business. In 2010, the military government held a general election. Many people thought it was only for show. They believed the military would still keep power. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi was not allowed to run in this election. But her party, the National League for Democracy, NLD, prepared quietly for the future. The election gave the military some control over a new civilian government. However, the military still kept strong power behind the scenes. Many activists and citizens wanted more real change, but even this small step was important. In 2011, the military government released many political prisoners, including some members of the NLD. It was a sign that things were starting to change. The government also allowed Suu Kyi to travel freely inside the country. It was the first time in many years she could move without soldiers watching her all the time. People were excited and hopeful. They believed Suu Kyi would soon be free. And in November 2010, she was finally released from house arrest after nearly 15 years in total. The gates opened, and she walked out to greet thousands of supporters. Her release was a moment of joy for the people. They lined the streets to see her. Many held signs and flowers. They shouted her name, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Her smile was bright, but she knew the real work was just beginning. After her release, Suu Kyi began traveling across Burma. She met people from many towns and villages. She listened to their stories and shared her vision for the country. She said, "Our nation needs peace, democracy, and development. We must work together." In April 2012, the NLD won a surprise victory in a by-election. Suu Kyi herself was elected to the Burmese parliament. This was a huge step forward. For the first time in decades, the people had a real chance to influence their government through peaceful means. Suu Kyi used her new position to speak about human rights, education, and healthcare. She pushed for laws to protect freedom of speech and to improve life for all citizens. But the military still held much power, especially in the army and government. Even with challenges, this period was a flicker of hope. The world saw Burma moving toward democracy. Suu Kyi's message of peace and unity inspired many people to believe that change was possible. The military government started to open the country more. Foreign leaders visited Burma. The economy improved. Trade increased. New businesses opened. More people could speak freely. The press became less controlled. These were all signs of a changing nation. However, there were still problems. Some ethnic groups continued to fight the government. There were reports of violence and human rights abuses. Suu Kyi faced criticism for not doing enough to help these groups, but she said that building peace takes time and understanding. Despite difficulties, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi stayed focused on her goal, a peaceful and democratic Burma. She believed that by working together, all the people could build a better future. Her release and entry into parliament were milestones. They showed that even long struggles can lead to new beginnings. Suu Kyi's journey was not over, but this flicker of change gave hope to many. Her story reminds us that freedom is not always fast or easy. Sometimes it comes slowly, like the light of a small flame in the dark. But with patience, courage, and belief, that flame can grow strong. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's life teaches us that even in difficult times, hope can shine. And when people stand together peacefully, they can create real change. Chapter 10. A Voice in Parliament. After many years of struggle and waiting, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi finally took a new step in her long journey. In 2012, she won a seat in the Burmese parliament. This was a very important moment for her and for the people of Burma. For the first time, she could help change the country from inside the government. Suu Kyi's decision to join parliament was not easy. For many years, she had stayed outside the official system, fighting against the military government. But now, the country was slowly opening, and the people needed a strong voice inside the government to work for real change. Her election victory was a surprise to many. People voted for her because they believed in her message of peace, freedom, and democracy. The National League for Democracy, NLD, had won many seats in the 1990 election, but the military refused to recognize those results. Now, after years of repression, the NLD was finally gaining real political power. When Suu Kyi entered parliament, she faced many challenges. The military still had great control over the government and the country's future. They held important positions in the parliament and controlled key ministries. Many laws gave the military power to block reforms. Despite these difficulties, Suu Kyi worked hard. She spoke openly about human rights, education, healthcare, and the rule of law. She wanted the government to listen to the people, not just the generals. She believed that every citizen should have a voice in decisions that affected their lives. One of her first goals was to improve education. She knew that education is the key to a better future. Many children in Burma did not have access to good schools or teachers. Suu Kyi wanted to change that. She pushed for more funding for schools and for better training for teachers. Healthcare was another important issue. Many people, especially in rural areas, did not have access to hospitals or medicine. Aung San Suu Kyi worked to improve health services and to make sure everyone could get help when they were sick. In parliament, Suu Kyi often spoke about the importance of peace and unity. Burma is a country with many different ethnic groups. Some of these groups have had long conflicts with the government. Suu Kyi believed that peace could only come through dialogue and understanding, not violence. At times, her position was difficult. Some people criticized her for not doing enough to protect ethnic minorities. Others thought she moved too slowly. Suu Kyi knew that change takes time and that building trust between different groups is a complex process. She also had to learn how to work with other politicians, some of whom had very different ideas. Politics required patience, negotiation, and compromise. Aung San Suu Kyi had to balance her ideals with the realities of governing a country still ruled in part by the military. Despite the challenges, Suu Kyi remained calm and focused. She continued to inspire her supporters with her peaceful approach. She often reminded people that democracy is not just about winning elections. It is about respecting human rights and the rule of law. Her presence in Parliament gave hope to many Burmese people. They saw that peaceful change was possible. They believed that one day Burma could become a fully democratic country, free from military rule. Suu Kyi's work in Parliament was also noticed by the international community. Leaders around the world praised her efforts to bring democracy to Burma. Countries began to lift some sanctions, allowing more trade and investment. This helped Burma's economy grow and created more opportunities for the people. However, the path was not easy. In 2015, the NLD won a large majority in the general election, but the constitution still gave the military power over important areas like defense and security. This meant that real change would require ongoing effort and cooperation. In Parliament, Suu Kyi became a symbol of hope and resilience. She showed that even after years of house arrest and hardship, it was possible to work peacefully for a better future. She believed in the power of dialogue and education to heal a divided nation. Suu Kyi's political journey taught many lessons. It showed that courage and patience are necessary for change. It showed that democracy requires participation, respect, and understanding. Most of all, it showed that one person's peaceful voice can make a difference. Her story encourages people not to give up, even when the road is long and difficult. It reminds us that standing up for what is right can lead to real progress. Aung San Suu Kyi's voice in Parliament was more than just words. It was a light for her country, a light that shone for freedom, hope, and peace. Chapter 11. The Road to Leadership. In 2015, Burma took a historic step. The people voted in a general election, and the National League for Democracy, NLD, led by Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, won a landslide victory. This was the first time in many decades that the NLD had real political power in the country. The election results showed the strong desire of the Burmese people for change. They wanted democracy, peace, and freedom. Many people believed that Suu Kyi's peaceful message was the way forward. She had spent years fighting for her country's future, and now, finally, the people gave her and her party a clear mandate. However, winning the election was not the end of the story. Burma's constitution, written by the military, still gave the army great power. The military reserved 25% of the seats in Parliament for itself. They also controlled key ministries, like defense and internal security. Because of this, Suu Kyi could not become president, even though her party had the majority. Instead, a new position called State Councillor was created just for her. This role made her the de facto leader of the government. It allowed her to lead the country's policies and decisions, even if she did not have the official title of president. Suu Kyi accepted this new role with great responsibility. She knew the challenges ahead were huge. Burma was a country with many problems: poverty, ethnic conflicts, poor education, and a fragile economy. She needed to unite the people and bring peace to a divided nation. From the start, Suu Kyi focused on building trust. She met with government officials, military leaders, and representatives from different ethnic groups. She wanted to create a peaceful dialogue where everyone could talk openly about their hopes and fears. Her leadership style was calm and patient. She believed in solving problems through negotiation and understanding, not through force. She often said, "We must work together as one nation." Her message inspired hope, but it also required patience and compromise. Aung San Suu Kyi worked to improve education and healthcare. She pushed for better schools and hospitals, especially in rural areas where many people lived in poverty. She knew that investing in people's future was the best way to help the country grow. Economic reform was also a priority. Burma needed foreign investment and better infrastructure. Suu Kyi encouraged businesses to come to Burma and promised a more open and fair economy. This brought new jobs and opportunities for many Burmese citizens. At the same time, Suu Kyi faced criticism. Some people said she was too close to the military. Others believed she did not do enough to protect ethnic minorities, especially the Rohingya Muslims, who faced serious persecution. These issues were very difficult and divided opinions inside and outside Burma. Despite these challenges, Suu Kyi remained focused on peace and democracy. She understood that leadership was not easy. It required listening to many voices and finding solutions that respected all people. Her role as state counselor showed how important it is to have a leader with vision and patience. She was not just a political figure, but a symbol of hope for millions of Burmese people. Her journey from house arrest to the highest level of leadership was remarkable. It showed that peaceful resistance and dedication could change the course of a nation. The road ahead was still long, and many problems remained. But with Suu Kyi's leadership, the people believed that Burma's future could be brighter. Her story reminds us that true leadership means serving the people, even when it is difficult. It means working together to build a better world. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's path to leadership is a lesson in courage, patience, and hope. It shows how one person's peaceful vision can help change a country. Chapter 12. Tides of Controversy. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's rise to leadership was a moment of hope for many people in Burma and around the world. After years of struggle, she finally had the chance to lead her country. But her time as a leader was not easy. It was full of challenges and controversies that tested her and her beliefs. One of the biggest difficulties was the ongoing conflict in Burma's ethnic regions. The country is home to many different ethnic groups. Some groups have lived separately for many years and wanted more rights or independence. Unfortunately, violence between the government and some ethnic groups continued, causing suffering and displacement of thousands of people. One group, the Rohingya Muslims, faced particularly harsh treatment. They lived mostly in Rakhine State, in western Burma. The military and government forces were accused of serious human rights abuses against the Rohingya, including violence, forced displacement, and destruction of villages. Many Rohingya people fled to neighboring countries to escape the violence. The world watched these events with concern. International organizations, governments, and human rights groups criticized the Burmese government and Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Many expected her to speak out strongly and stop the violence. However, Suu Kyi remained mostly silent on this issue, focusing instead on maintaining peace with the military and protecting national unity. This silence caused disappointment and anger internationally. Some countries withdrew support, and some international leaders questioned her commitment to human rights. The Nobel Committee, which awarded her the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991, also expressed concern about the situation. Inside Burma, the issue was complicated. Suu Kyi faced pressure from the military and other political forces. She had to balance her role as a leader trying to keep peace with her moral responsibilities. Many Burmese people supported her and believed she was doing the best she could in a difficult situation. Others, including some activists, criticized her for not doing enough. Apart from the Rohingya crisis, Suu Kyi's government faced many other problems. The economy was still weak, and many people lived in poverty. Corruption remained an issue. Building a true democracy after decades of military rule was hard work. Laws and institutions needed time to develop and improve. Suu Kyi also had to manage relations with the military, which still held great power. The military's influence over security and politics limited her government's ability to make deep changes. This tension sometimes slowed progress and created political conflicts. Despite these challenges, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi continued to promote dialogue and peace. She believed that Burma's future depended on understanding and cooperation. She often said that change takes time, and that leaders must work together, even with their differences. Her leadership showed the difficult balance between idealism and reality. Leading a country with a complex history and many problems is never simple. Suu Kyi's experience teaches us that even great leaders face tough decisions and criticism. Many people still admire her courage and dedication. They remember her years of sacrifice and her peaceful fight for democracy. But her story also reminds us that leadership can be complicated. It asks us to look closely at the challenges behind the headlines and understand the pressures leaders face. The tides of controversy during Suu Kyi's leadership were a test of her strength and character. While she did not always meet everyone's expectations, she remained a symbol of hope for many in Burma and around the world. Her journey shows that change is never perfect or easy. It is full of challenges, setbacks, and difficult choices. But with courage and patience, progress is possible. Chapter 13. Unbowed in the Storm. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi has faced many storms in her life, from house arrest to political battles. Even after becoming the leader of Myanmar's government, her path remained full of challenges. Despite this, she stayed in her country, determined to help her people and lead them through difficult times. After the National League for Democracy, NLD, won the 2015 elections, many people hoped Myanmar would finally become a peaceful democracy. But the reality was much harder. The military still held great power, and many problems remained. The country was divided by ethnic conflicts, economic struggles, and political tensions. Suu Kyi understood that change would take time. She did not leave Myanmar, even when some critics suggested she should step down or leave for safety. Instead, she stayed to face the problems head-on. Her decision to remain showed her strong commitment to her country and people. In the years that followed, Myanmar went through many difficult transitions. The government tried to reform laws, improve the economy, and build trust among ethnic groups. But old conflicts did not disappear quickly. Violence in some regions continued, and the military's role in politics remained powerful. Aung San Suu Kyi worked hard to balance many different interests. She spoke often about the need for peace and unity. She met with leaders from different groups, hoping to find solutions through dialogue. Her calm and steady presence helped keep hope alive for many people. At the same time, international pressure grew. The world watched Myanmar closely, especially because of the crisis involving the Rohingya. Many countries criticized Suu Kyi for not speaking out more strongly against the military's actions. This brought her both criticism and isolation on the global stage. Despite these pressures, Suu Kyi chose to focus on her work inside Myanmar. She believed that lasting change must come from within the country, not from outside forces. She wanted to protect Myanmar's sovereignty and promote peace in her own way. Her leadership was tested again in 2020 when the NLD won another strong victory in national elections. However, the military refused to accept the results. In early 2021, the military staged a coup, arresting Suu Kyi and many other political leaders. This was a dark moment for Myanmar's democracy. Even after the coup, Suu Kyi's spirit remained unbowed. Though detained, she continued to inspire people who wanted freedom and democracy. Her life is a story of courage and hope, showing that true leaders do not give up, even in the hardest storms. Suu Kyi's journey teaches us many lessons. It shows the power of patience, the importance of standing firm, and the challenges of leading a country through change. It reminds us that progress is not always easy or quick, but requires strength and resilience. Today, as Myanmar faces an uncertain future, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's example remains a beacon for many. Her commitment to her people and her belief in peace and democracy continue to inspire hope. Her story is far from over, but through every storm, she has shown that courage and determination can light the way forward. Chapter 14, Caged Again, Yet Free in Spirit. In early 2021, Myanmar faced one of its darkest moments in recent history. After years of slow political progress, the military once again took control of the country. On February 1st, the military staged a coup d'état, arresting Daw Aung San Suu Kyi along with many other leaders of the National League for Democracy, NLD. This event shocked the world. The military claimed the November 2020 election, which the NLD had won by a large majority, was full of fraud. But many people inside Myanmar and internationally believed the election was fair. The coup was seen as a way for the military to keep its power and stop the country's democratic progress. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi was placed under house arrest again. This was not the first time she faced confinement. For nearly 15 years over the past decades, she had been under house arrest because of her fight for democracy. But now she was back in a similar situation, this time as the leader of a government that the military refused to accept. Despite being caged, Suu Kyi's spirit remained free. She became a symbol of resistance and hope for millions of people inside Myanmar. Many citizens protested against the military coup. They took to the streets, organized strikes, and showed peaceful resistance, inspired by Suu Kyi's lifelong commitment to nonviolent struggle. The military tried to silence voices of democracy by arresting activists, blocking internet access, and using force. However, the people's will for freedom stayed strong. Suu Kyi's name was on everyone's lips. Her courage reminded people that even in difficult times, hope and strength can survive. International governments condemned the coup and called for her release. Sanctions were imposed on military leaders. Human rights groups demanded justice. But the situation in Myanmar remained tense and uncertain. During this renewed house arrest, Suu Kyi faced legal charges brought by the military government. These cases were widely seen as politically motivated attempts to keep her away from power. Despite this, Suu Kyi remained calm and dignified, showing the same quiet strength she had during her years of detention in the past. Her situation reminded many that freedom is not only physical. Even when imprisoned, Suu Kyi's ideas, courage, and hope could not be taken away. She inspired a new generation of Burmese people to continue the struggle for democracy and human rights. Her story is one of resilience, how a leader can remain free in spirit even when physically confined. It shows the power of hope, determination, and peaceful resistance. Today, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's life teaches us about the cost of freedom and the strength needed to protect it. Her renewed house arrest is a reminder that the fight for democracy is ongoing, but it also shows that the spirit of a true leader cannot be locked away. Her courage continues to light the path for Myanmar's future, even in the darkest of times. Chapter 15. The Legacy of a Lady. Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's life is one of the most important stories in modern Myanmar and the world. Her journey shows courage, hope, and the fight for freedom. Even with many challenges, she has inspired millions. Suu Kyi is called the Lady by many people. This simple title shows the deep respect she has earned. She is known for her peaceful struggle to bring democracy to her country. She spent many years under house arrest, yet she never gave up on her dreams for Myanmar. Her legacy is not only about politics, it is about strength, patience, and belief in justice. She showed the world that change can happen without violence. Her example inspired people not only in Myanmar, but in many countries where people fight for freedom. However, Suu Kyi's life also teaches us about the complexity of leadership. Her time in power had both successes and difficulties. Some criticized her for not doing enough to protect minority groups. Others believed she had to balance many pressures, including the military's power. Despite these debates, her life remains a symbol of hope. She gave a voice to the people who wanted democracy and human rights. She helped bring international attention to Myanmar's struggles. Her story encourages us to keep fighting for what is right, even when the road is hard. It reminds us that leaders are human and face many challenges. True leadership is not perfect, but it is full of determination and care for others. For Myanmar, Suu Kyi's legacy is a call to continue building a peaceful and free country. Many young people today look up to her as an example. They want to carry on her work and create a better future. Around the world, people remember her Nobel Peace Prize, her years of peaceful resistance, and her role as a symbol of democracy. Her life is studied in schools and shared in stories everywhere. In the end, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's legacy is about more than one person. It is about the dream of freedom, justice, and peace. It is about the hope that no matter how hard the struggle, people can come together to create change. Her life teaches us all to be brave, to speak out, and to believe in a better world. That is the greatest legacy a leader can leave. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Today, on her birthday, we have explored her incredible story, a story of courage, hope, and the fight for freedom. From her early days as the daughter of a great hero to her long years of house arrest and her efforts to lead Myanmar towards democracy, Suu Kyi's life teaches us many important lessons. Her story shows us the power of peaceful resistance and the strength it takes to stand up for what is right. Even when facing great challenges, she never gave up. She reminds us that change is not easy, and that true leadership means patience, courage, and care for others. At the same time, her life teaches us that leadership is complex. There are difficult decisions and hard moments that test even the strongest people. We saw how Suu Kyi faced criticism and controversy, but also how she remained committed to her people and her country. As learners of English and lovers of stories, we can find inspiration in her life. It encourages us to keep learning, to stay hopeful, and to believe that each of us can make a difference in the world. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Read and Learn English. Here, we explore amazing stories that help you improve your English and learn about the world. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends. Thank you again for watching. Remember, every great story begins with a single step, and every voice matters. Keep practicing your English. Keep believing in yourself, and keep reading and learning. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.